Security! Remove this woman immediately. She's trespassing at my daughter's wedding. I stood frozen in the doorway of the Plaza Hotel's grand ballroom, wearing my best navy dress and clutching a wedding gift I'd saved 3 months to buy. 300 guests in designer gowns and $1,000 suits turned to stare at me like I was some deranged street person who'd wandered in from Central Park. But I wasn't a stranger. I was the bride's grandmother, the woman who'd raised the mother of the bride single-handedly after her father died, the woman whose name was supposed to be on the guest list until it mysteriously disappeared. "Please, Linda, don't do this," I whispered as two security guards in black suits stepped toward me. "I just want to see Emma get married." My daughter's face was pure venom. "You're embarrassing me in front of the Vanderbilts, Mother. Look at yourself. That cheap dress, those outdated shoes. You don't belong here." The chandeliers overhead blazed like courtroom lights, illuminating every horrified face staring at the spectacle. Whispers rippled through the crowd like wildfire. Is that really her mother? How awful. At her own granddaughter's wedding, Emma, radiant in her $15,000 Vera Wang gown, stood paralyzed at the altar, tears streaming down her face as she watched her own mother destroy her grandmother in front of New York's elite. The security guards reached for my arms. That's when I pulled out the envelope that would change everything. You want to know how I became the embarrassing grandmother? Let me tell you about the woman who sacrificed everything only to watch her daughter sell her soul for social status. I'm Caroline Hughes, 81 years old, and I spent 43 years turning tone-deaf kids into Carnegie Hall performers. But my greatest creation wasn't a student. It was my daughter Linda, who I molded from a welfare kid into a Goldman Sachs executive worth $8 million. When Linda's father died in 1987, we had exactly $347 in our bank account and a stack of medical bills that could paper our entire Brooklyn brownstone. Linda was 16 and already acting like she was too good for our neighborhood, embarrassed when her rich classmates saw our peeling paint and my secondhand piano. "I'm not living like this forever," she'd spit at me after seeing her friends' penthouses. "I'm going to be somebody." So, I made her somebody. I sold my grandmother's wedding ring, a 2-carat Victorian diamond that had been in our family for 4 generations. I sold my late husband's vintage Gibson guitar, worth more than our car. I even sold my own engagement ring while Linda slept, because God forbid she should sacrifice anything. I worked as a cleaning lady at Goldman Sachs offices at 4 a.m., scrubbing toilets before teaching piano all day, then playing wedding gigs until midnight. Linda got her designer prom dress while I wore the same black dress to every funeral for 5 years. "Sacrifices are temporary, sweetheart," I told her when she complained about eating ramen again. "Your future is permanent." Columbia Business School cost me $180,000. I refinanced our house 3 times. I developed arthritis in my hands from scrubbing floors. But I told everyone it was from too much piano playing. Even when Linda graduated summa cum laude and landed her dream job, she never said thank you. She said, "Finally, I can stop being embarrassed." The first red flag? Her wedding in 1995. She uninvited my best friend, Mrs. Peterson, because she talks too loud and dresses like a bag lady. She seated me at table 12, behind her college roommates she barely spoke to. But I forgave everything when Emma was born. That little angel had my musical gift and my late husband's kind eyes. Every Sunday for 15 years, I'd take the subway to Manhattan, my arthritic hands carrying homemade cookies and sheet music. Grandma Caroline, you smell like vanilla and sound like angels, Emma would whisper when she hugged me. Those were the happiest days of my life. Until Linda got promoted to senior partner and decided I was bad for the family brand. The crushing blow came last Christmas. Emma, now 25 and engaged, was playing Silent Night on Linda's $50,000 Steinway when Linda snapped, "Enough with the piano already. This isn't some Brooklyn talent show." Emma's hands froze on the keys. "But Mom, Grandma Caroline taught me this song when I was—" "Your grandmother filled your head with unrealistic dreams," Linda cut her off. "Music is a hobby for poor people. You're marrying into the Rothschild family now. Act like it." I watched my granddaughter's face crumble, the same way Linda's used to when I couldn't afford the things her friends had. Except now, Linda was the one crushing dreams. That night, Emma called me crying. "Grandma, I wish I could uninvite Mom from my own wedding and just have you walk me down the aisle." 3 weeks later, I got the wedding invitation with my name in gold lettering. I spent my entire month's Social Security check on a navy dress and pearls, thinking maybe Linda had finally remembered that I was the reason she could afford this life. I was wrong. The invitation was Emma's doing. Linda's plan was far more cruel. Linda's plan revealed itself 3 weeks before the wedding, when I showed up at her penthouse with Emma's wedding gift, a restored 1920s music box that played the Wedding March, the same one my grandmother had given me in 1963. "What are you doing here, Mother?" Linda's voice was ice cold as she blocked her doorway, not even inviting me inside. Behind her, I could see George frantically shuffling papers on their dining table, papers that looked suspiciously official. "I wanted to give Emma her gift early," I said, holding up the carefully wrapped box. "And maybe we could discuss the seating arrangements? I haven't received my table assignment yet." Linda's laugh was sharp enough to cut glass. "Oh, didn't I tell you? There's been a change of plans." That's when George appeared behind her, his face flushed with guilt. In his hands were fresh printouts from the Plaza Hotel's event coordinator. I caught a glimpse of the guest list, row after row of names I didn't recognize, all marked with table numbers. My name wasn't there. "Linda, where am I sitting?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "You're not." She said it so casually, like she was discussing the weather. "Mother, this wedding is costing us $300,000. Every seat represents important connections, business relationships, social investments. I'm your mother," I said, my hands beginning to shake. "I'm Emma's grandmother." "You're a retired Brooklyn school teacher who still shops at discount stores," Linda shot back. "Do you have any idea who's going to be there? The Rothschilds, the Astors, 3 Supreme Court justices, half the board of Goldman Sachs. What exactly would you contribute to those conversations?" George cleared his throat nervously. "Caroline, maybe it's better this way. You wouldn't be comfortable with that crowd anyway. These people summer in the Hamptons and winter in Aspen. They'll be talking about things I couldn't possibly understand," I finished for him. "Like how I scraped together $180,000 to put your wife through business school? Like how I worked 3 jobs so she could have the life that bought her a seat at those tables?" Linda's eyes narrowed. "That was your choice, Mother, your investment. And frankly, you've gotten your return. I've been supporting you for years. Supporting me? I laughed bitterly. You mean the $500 you send every Christmas? The same amount you probably spend on lunch? I bought you that new hearing aid last year, Linda countered. And George fixed your leaky roof. After I asked 17 times and the ceiling started caving in, the papers rustled in George's hands, and I caught another glimpse. Guest accommodations at the Plaza Hotel, transportation arrangements for VIP guests, a detailed breakdown of each table's networking value. This is really about money, isn't it? I said, the pieces clicking together. You're not just throwing a wedding, you're hosting a business opportunity. Every seat is calculated for maximum profit. Linda's mask finally slipped. Welcome to the real world, Mother. This wedding will generate more business connections in one night than most people make in a lifetime. Emma's marrying into the Rothschild family. Do you understand what kind of doors that opens? And what doors does it close? I asked quietly. The ones that needed closing, she replied without hesitation. That's when Emma herself appeared from the back hallway, still in her yoga clothes, her face streaked with tears. She'd obviously been listening. Mom, how could you? She whispered. Grandma Caroline taught me everything I know about music. She's more family to me than half those people you're inviting. Emma, go to your room, Linda snapped. This is an adult conversation. I'm 25 years old, Emma exploded. And this is my wedding. If Grandma Caroline isn't invited, then maybe I don't want this wedding at all. George stepped forward, his voice taking on a threatening tone I'd never heard before. Emma, your mother has worked very hard to arrange this event. The deposits are non-refundable. The contracts are signed. You're going to walk down that aisle and smile. And you're going to thank us later for protecting you from making emotional decisions. Protecting me from what? From loving my grandmother? From embarrassing yourself, Linda said flatly. Caroline, I need you to understand something. This isn't personal. It's practical. You don't fit the demographic we need at this event. I stared at my daughter, this woman I'd sacrificed everything for, and realized I was looking at a stranger. Somewhere along the way, the little girl who used to cry when she couldn't afford the same clothes as her friends had become the exact type of person who would have excluded her younger self. Emma, I said quietly, ignoring Linda completely. I want you to remember something. No matter what happens, no matter who tries to convince you otherwise, you are more than the sum of your connections. You are more than your networking value, and you deserve to be surrounded by people who love you for who you are, not what you can do for them. Linda grabbed the music box from my hands. I think it's time for you to leave, Mother. As I walked toward the elevator, I heard Emma sobbing behind me and Linda hissing. Stop being so dramatic. She'll get over it. But as those elevator doors closed, I made a decision that would change everything. The next 2 weeks were psychological warfare disguised as wedding preparations. Linda didn't just uninvite me. She systematically erased me from Emma's entire wedding narrative. When Emma posted engagement photos on Instagram, Linda made her crop out any pictures that included me. When the wedding planner asked about grandmother's corsage, Linda said, "We only have one grandmother attending." But the cruelest blow came when I discovered Linda had been telling people I was suffering from dementia. Mrs. Chen from my old school called me, confused. Caroline, dear, I ran into your Linda at Whole Foods yesterday. She told me you wouldn't be at Emma's wedding because your condition has gotten worse. She said you've been having episodes, forgetting where you are. My blood turned to ice water. Mrs. Chen, I'm sitting here balancing my checkbook and doing the Sunday crossword in pen. Does that sound like dementia to you? Oh, honey, I knew she was lying. You're sharper than people half your age. But why would she say such awful things? I knew why. Linda was building a narrative. If people thought I was mentally incompetent, they wouldn't question my absence from the wedding. They'd actually pity Linda for having to deal with a difficult mother. The gaslighting escalated when George showed up at my brownstone unannounced, carrying a manila folder and wearing his legal intimidation face. Caroline, we need to talk about your living situation, he said, not waiting for an invitation before walking into my living room. Linda's concerned about your safety, living alone. My safety? I laughed. George, I've lived in this house for 37 years. I know where every floorboard creaks. He opened the folder, revealing brochures for assisted living facilities. Expensive ones. Sunset Manor has an excellent music therapy program. You'd be around people your own age with professional care. You mean around people you could convince are actually suffering from dementia? I cut him off. How convenient that would be for Linda's narrative. George's face flushed red. Now look here, Caroline. Linda has been very patient with your eccentricities. But this wedding tantrum has crossed a line. You're causing Emma unnecessary stress during what should be the happiest time of her life. I'm causing stress? I'm not the one who uninvited her grandmother and then lied about having dementia. Keep your voice down, he hissed, glancing toward my open windows. Do you want the whole neighborhood to hear you having another episode? That's when I realized they weren't just isolating me, they were documenting it. George was trying to provoke me into an emotional reaction he could use as evidence of my instability. Instead, I spoke in the calmest voice I could muster. George, get out of my house. Now! Caroline, be reasonable. Get out! I finally exploded, exactly like he wanted me to. Before I call the police and tell them you're trying to have me committed so you can steal my property. George smiled coldly as he tucked the brochures back into his folder. I'll make sure Linda knows about this outburst. Emma needs to understand what kind of person she's been defending. After he left, I discovered the real depth of their manipulation. Emma had been calling me every day since the penthouse confrontation. But somehow, my phone had been ringing straight to voicemail. When I called the phone company, they told me someone with access to my account had activated a selective call forwarding feature, meaning calls from Emma's number were being redirected to Linda's phone. Linda had been intercepting every call from my granddaughter for 2 weeks. But the most devastating discovery came when I checked my mailbox and found a letter addressed to Emma in my own handwriting, except I'd never written it. The letter, on my personal stationery, read, Dearest Emma, I've decided not to attend your wedding. At my age, large gatherings are too overwhelming, and I don't want to cast a shadow on your special day with my health issues. Please understand that this is for the best. Love, Grandma Caroline. Someone had practiced my handwriting. Someone had forged my signature. Someone had mailed this to Emma from my own address. I called Emma immediately using a different phone. Grandma Caroline? Her voice was thick with tears. I got your letter. I'm so sorry you're not feeling well enough to come. Mom said you've been having good days and bad days. Emma, sweetheart, I never wrote that letter. Silence. Then, what do you mean? I mean, your mother forged it. I've been trying to call you for 2 weeks, but she's been intercepting our calls. The silence stretched so long, I thought the line had gone dead. Finally, Emma whispered, Grandma, what kind of people have I been living with? The breaking point came on the morning of Emma's wedding, when I received a phone call that shattered whatever remained of my heart. Mrs. Hughes, this is Detective Morrison from the 19th Precinct. We received a wellness check request for your address. The caller was concerned you might be experiencing a mental health crisis. My hands trembled as I gripped the phone. Detective, I'm perfectly fine. Who called this in? Your daughter, Linda Hughes. She reported that you've been making threatening phone calls to family members and showing signs of severe dementia. She's requesting immediate psychiatric evaluation and possible involuntary commitment. The room spun around me. Through my window, I could see Linda's black Mercedes parked across the street with George behind the wheel, both of them watching my house like vultures. Detective Morrison, my daughter is trying to have me committed, so I can't attend my granddaughter's wedding today. This is elder abuse. Ma'am, I understand you're upset, but I need to ask you some questions. Do you know what day it is? It's Saturday, October 14th, 2023. My granddaughter, Emma Rothschild, is getting married at the Plaza Hotel at 4 p.m., and my daughter Linda is trying to prevent me from attending by having me declared mentally incompetent. There was a pause. Mrs. Hughes, you seem very lucid to me, but I still need to complete this wellness check. May I come inside? Detective Morrison was a kind woman in her 40s who reminded me of my former students' mothers. As she sat in my living room, she looked around at my organized bookshelves, my perfectly maintained piano, my neat stack of daily newspapers. Mrs. Hughes, this doesn't look like the home of someone with dementia, she said carefully. Your daughter claimed you've been leaving the stove on, forgetting to pay bills, getting lost in your own neighborhood. I showed her my checkbook, balanced to the penny, my daily planner, filled with neat handwriting, my recent grocery receipts, all organized by date. Detective, would you like to hear me play Chopin's Etude in E major? It's quite difficult, requires significant cognitive function and fine motor control. As I played the complex piece flawlessly, Detective Morrison's expression grew increasingly grim. When I finished, she closed her notebook. Mrs. Hughes, I'm going to be very direct with you. Someone has filed a false police report. This appears to be a deliberate attempt to manipulate emergency services for personal gain. That's a crime. What can I do? First, I'm documenting that you are clearly competent and in no need of psychiatric intervention. Second, I'm recommending you contact Adult Protective Services immediately. And third, she hesitated. Mrs. Hughes, if you have anywhere else you can go today, I'd strongly suggest it. Your daughter and son-in-law are still sitting outside, and they don't look like they're giving up. That's when I realized Linda's master plan. She'd timed this perfectly. While I was dealing with police and psychiatric evaluations, Emma's wedding would proceed without me. By the time everything was resolved, the ceremony would be over. And Linda could claim I'd had a medical emergency that prevented my attendance. But as Detective Morrison prepared to leave, my phone rang. It was Emma, calling from the Plaza Hotel. Grandma Caroline? Where are you? The wedding starts in 2 hours, and you're not here for pictures. I looked at Detective Morrison, who nodded encouragingly. Emma, sweetheart, your mother called the police and tried to have me committed this morning to prevent me from coming to your wedding." The silence was deafening. Then, "She did what?" She told them I have dementia and am a danger to myself. There's a police detective here right now who can confirm I'm perfectly fine. Put her on the phone. I handed Detective Morrison my phone. Detective Morrison speaking. "Yes, miss. Your grandmother is completely competent and oriented. No, there are no mental health concerns whatsoever. This appears to be a family dispute that has been escalated inappropriately." When she handed the phone back, Emma's voice was ice cold. "Grandma Caroline, I want you to listen to me very carefully. I am driving to Brooklyn right now to pick you up personally. We are going to walk into my wedding together, and if my mother has a problem with that, she can explain to 300 guests why she tried to have her own mother arrested on her daughter's wedding day. Emma, you don't understand. Your mother has been planning this for—" "Oh, I understand perfectly." Emma cut me off. "I understand that I've been living with monsters who would sacrifice their own family for social status. But that ends today. Today, Grandma Caroline, you're going to get the revenge you deserve." As Emma's car pulled away from my house 30 minutes later, I made a phone call that would change my family forever. Stein, Goldberg and Associates, Mr. Stein's office. "This is Caroline Hughes. I need to speak with David immediately. It's about my will." David Stein had been my lawyer for 23 years, ever since I'd first written my will after Linda graduated college. He'd watched me struggle with every revision. Every time I'd second-guessed leaving everything to a daughter who barely acknowledged my existence. "Caroline, what's happening? You sound upset." "David, I need you to meet me at the Plaza Hotel in 1 hour. Bring the documents we discussed last month. The new will, the trust modifications, everything." "Caroline, are you sure? Once we execute these changes—" "David, they tried to have me committed this morning. They forged my signature. They've been telling people I have dementia. My own daughter called the police to prevent me from attending my granddaughter's wedding." My voice broke. "I'm sure. I'll be there in 45 minutes." As Emma drove through the familiar streets of Brooklyn toward Manhattan, I told her everything: the forged letter, the intercepted phone calls, the dementia lies, the attempt to have me institutionalized. With each revelation, Emma's knuckles grew whiter on the steering wheel. "Grandma Caroline, I am so sorry. I should have known Mom was lying. I should have fought harder." "Sweetheart, you were being manipulated by experts. They've been practicing this psychological warfare for years. But why? What did they think they would gain?" I pulled out the documents David had prepared the month before. After Linda's last particularly cruel rejection, when I'd asked to attend Emma's engagement party. "Emma, your mother has been counting on inheriting my house and savings for her entire adult life. She spent money she doesn't have, assuming my estate would cover her debts. What she doesn't know is that last month, I changed everything." Emma's eyes widened as she read the papers. "You're leaving everything to musical education charities?" "Every penny. The house, my savings, my life insurance, it's all going to fund music programs for underprivileged children. Kids who dream of playing piano but whose parents can't afford lessons." "What about Mom?" "Your mother gets exactly what she's given me for the past 10 years. Nothing." We pulled up to the Plaza Hotel, and I could see the chaos through the glass doors. Wedding guests in designer gowns and expensive suits mingling in the lobby. Photographers capturing every angle. And somewhere in the middle of it all, Linda, believing she'd successfully eliminated the one person who could ruin her perfect day. Grandma Caroline, Emma said, gripping my hand. Are you ready for this? I looked at my granddaughter, this beautiful young woman who'd chosen love over social climbing, who'd driven across the city to rescue her grandmother from her own daughter's cruelty. Emma, I've spent 81 years being the bigger person. I've turned the other cheek, kept the peace, sacrificed my dignity for family harmony. And what did it get me? A daughter who's embarrassed by my existence, and a son-in-law who tried to have me committed. So what's the plan? I smiled, feeling a strength I hadn't felt in years. The plan is that your mother is about to learn that actions have consequences, and that sometimes the people you dismiss as powerless are the ones who hold all the cards. As we walked toward the hotel entrance, David Stein stepped out of a taxi, briefcase in hand. He was a distinguished man in his 60s who'd seen enough family drama to know that today was going to be memorable. Caroline, you look magnificent, he said, taking in my navy dress and pearl earrings. Are you absolutely certain about this? David, they tried to have me arrested on my granddaughter's wedding day. They told the police I was mentally incompetent. They forged my signature and spread lies about dementia. I straightened my shoulders. I've never been more certain of anything in my life. Then let's go make some family history. As we walked through the Plaza Hotel's golden doors, I felt the weight of 3 generations of sacrifice and betrayal on my shoulders. But for the first time in decades, I also felt something else. Power. Today, Linda was going to discover that the mother she'd dismissed as weak and irrelevant had been quietly preparing for this moment for months. Today, she was going to learn that respect isn't optional, and family isn't just about blood. It's about love, loyalty, and honor. And today, justice was going to be served at a wedding reception. The moment we entered the Plaza Hotel's grand ballroom, 300 pairs of eyes turned toward us. The orchestra that had been playing gentle background music suddenly stopped, creating a silence so profound you could hear the crystal chandeliers tinkling overhead. Linda, resplendent in her $8,000 mother of the bride dress, stood frozen near the wedding cake like a deer caught in headlights. George dropped his champagne glass, the crystal shattering against the marble floor in a sound that echoed through the room like a gunshot. Ladies and gentlemen, I announced, my voice carrying across the ballroom with the same authority I'd used to command middle school orchestras for 4 decades. I apologize for the interruption, but I have an important announcement to make. The murmur of confused voices rippled through the crowd. I could see the Rothschilds, the Astors, Supreme Court justices, and Goldman Sachs executives all turning to each other with bewildered expressions. This was not part of the carefully choreographed social event they'd expected. Emma appeared at my side, linking her arm through mine, in a gesture of solidarity that spoke louder than any words. Many of you don't know me, I continued, but I'm Caroline Hughes, Emma's grandmother and Linda's mother, the woman who was supposed to be suffering from dementia and too unstable to attend this wedding. A gasp went through the crowd. Linda's face drained of all color. This morning, my daughter attempted to have me involuntarily committed to prevent me from attending my granddaughter's wedding. She told the police I was mentally incompetent and dangerous. Fortunately, Detective Morrison of the 19th Precinct was able to confirm that I am, in fact, perfectly sound of mind. The whispers grew louder. George tried to step forward, but David Stein smoothly intercepted him. You see, I continued, my voice growing stronger with each word. My daughter has spent years telling people I'm an embarrassment, that I don't fit her social circle, that I'm not worthy of inclusion in her carefully curated life. I pulled out the documents David had prepared. What Linda doesn't know is that for the past month, I've been working with my attorney to ensure that my final wishes reflect the same level of respect and consideration she's shown me. Linda finally found her voice. Mother, what are you doing? You're ruining Emma's wedding. No, Linda, I'm saving it. I handed the papers to David. Mr. Stein, would you please read the relevant sections of my new last will and testament to our guests? David cleared his throat and spoke in the crisp, authoritative voice of a man who delivered difficult news to wealthy families for 30 years. As of October 1st, 2023, Caroline Hughes has revised her estate planning documents. The previous beneficiary, Linda Hughes, has been removed entirely from all inheritance considerations. Mrs. Hughes's entire estate, valued at approximately $2.3 million, including her Brooklyn Brownstone investment portfolio and life insurance policies, will now be donated to establish the Thomas Hughes Memorial Music Foundation. The silence was deafening. You could have heard a pin drop in that ballroom. This foundation, David continued, will provide free piano lessons to underprivileged children in Brooklyn and the Bronx, ensuring that musical education remains accessible to families regardless of their financial circumstances. Linda's legs nearly gave out. George caught her arm, his face purple with rage. Furthermore, David added, Mrs. Hughes has designated her granddaughter Emma as the Foundation's executive director, with full authority to oversee the distribution of funds and programs. Emma gasped. Grandma Caroline. You see, I said, addressing the room full of Manhattan's elite. I've learned that family isn't about blood relations or social obligations. It's about respect, love, and honor. My daughter may be embarrassed by a Brooklyn music teacher, but Emma understands that true worth isn't measured by zip codes or bank accounts. I turned to face Linda directly. You wanted me erased from your life, Linda. Consider it done. But unlike you, I believe in giving people exactly what they deserve. The crowd was transfixed. Camera phones were discreetly appearing, capturing every moment of what was already becoming legendary among New York's social circles. And now, I announced, I believe there's a wedding to celebrate. Emma, my darling granddaughter, shall we dance? As the orchestra tentatively resumed playing and Emma and I walked toward the dance floor, the crowd slowly began to follow. But the damage was done. Linda Hughes, the woman who'd orchestrated this perfect social event, had just been publicly exposed as someone who tried to have her own mother committed rather than share a wedding reception with her. The gossip mill of Manhattan's elite had just received enough material to last for years. 6 months later, I'm sitting in my Brooklyn brownstone, watching through my window as moving trucks load furniture from Linda and George's Manhattan penthouse. The foreclosure notice had been posted 3 weeks ago. Apparently, Linda's assumption that she'd inherit my estate had led to some very expensive financial decisions. My phone rings. It's Emma, calling from the Thomas Hughes Memorial Music Foundation's new headquarters in downtown Brooklyn. Grandma Caroline, you won't believe what happened today. We just had our 50th student enrollment this week. Little Maria Santos played for Elise for the first time, and she cried with joy. That's wonderful, sweetheart. Your grandfather would be so proud. I have something else to tell you. James and I have been talking, and we want to know if you'd like to move in with us. Not because you need taking care of, she added quickly, but because we're buying a house in Park Slope with a music room, and we'd love to have you help design the perfect piano studio. I smile, looking around at the home I've lived in for 37 years. Emma, I think I'd like that very much. The foundation has given me a purpose I never expected at 81. Every Tuesday and Thursday, I teach piano to children whose parents could never afford lessons. Their faces light up the same way Emma's did when she was little. Pure joy at creating something beautiful with their own hands. Mrs. Chen from my old school stopped by yesterday with a casserole and some gossip. Caroline, you'll never guess what I heard at the grocery store. Linda's been telling people that you had a nervous breakdown and cut her out of your will during a dementia episode. Let her say whatever helps her sleep at night, I replied. The truth has a way of speaking for itself. And it has. 3 months ago, the New York Times ran a feature story about the foundation. From wedding scandal to musical miracle. How one grandmother's public stand created a musical legacy. The article detailed Linda's attempt to have me committed, the public confrontation at the plaza, and the remarkable success of our music program. The story went viral. Donations poured in from around the country. People who'd experienced similar family betrayals, who understood what it meant to be dismissed and devalued by those who should love you most. Linda tried to sue, claiming I was mentally incompetent when I changed my will. The case was dismissed when Detective Morrison testified about my clear mental state on the day Linda had requested the wellness check. The judge's final comment became legendary in legal circles. Attempting to have someone declared incompetent and then claiming they were incompetent when they outsmart you is the definition of frivolous litigation. Emma tells me that Linda has been spotted working as a hostess at a mid-tier restaurant in Queens. George lost his job at Goldman Sachs after the scandal broke. Apparently, attempting to institutionalize elderly relatives for financial gain doesn't align with their corporate values. But the most satisfying moment came last month when I was leaving Lincoln Center after a foundation fundraising concert. I saw Linda waiting at a bus stop, having clearly attended the same event. Our eyes met across the street. For a moment, I thought about walking over, about offering some gesture of reconciliation, some bridge across the chasm her greed had created. Instead, I got into the car Emma had sent for me and rode home to my brownstone, where I spent the evening teaching piano to twin brothers, whose parents worked double shifts but refused to let their children's dreams die from lack of opportunity. The house feels different now, lighter. For years, it had been weighed down by my sadness, my loneliness, my desperate attempts to earn love from a daughter who saw me as an obligation rather than a gift. Now it's filled with music again. Children's laughter echoes from the living room every afternoon. Emma stops by twice a week for dinner, often bringing James and sometimes other foundation volunteers. I've learned something important at 81. Respect isn't something you can demand or buy. It's something you earn through your actions and something you lose the same way. Linda spent years believing that wealth and social status would make people respect her. What she never understood is that respect comes from how you treat others, especially those who can't do anything for you. Every morning, I wake up in a house filled with love, surrounded by people who value my presence instead of waiting for my absence. That's worth more than any inheritance Linda could ever have squandered. 1 year later, I'm standing in the same Brooklyn brownstone where I raised Linda, but everything has changed. The living room that once echoed with my lonely footsteps now vibrates with the sound of 12 children practicing scales and arpeggios every afternoon. Today is special, though. Today marks the first anniversary of what the New York Post dubbed the Plaza Hotel Revenge Wedding, a story that still gets shared on social media every few months by people who believe in justice for the elderly. Emma walks through my front door carrying a bottle of champagne and a manila envelope. Grandma Caroline, I have news. 2 pieces of news, actually. She pops the champagne and pours 2 glasses. First, the foundation just received its largest donation ever, $500,000 from an anonymous donor whose note said, "For every grandmother who was told she wasn't good enough." That's wonderful, sweetheart. And the second piece of news? Emma's face grows serious. Mom wants to see you. I set down my champagne glass. In the past year, Linda has made no attempt to contact me directly. No apology, no explanation, no acknowledgement of what she'd done. What does she want? She's she's struggling, Grandma Caroline. The restaurant job doesn't cover her bills. She's been staying in a studio apartment in Queens, and George moved back to Ohio to live with his mother after the divorce. The divorce? It was finalized last month. Apparently, George blamed Mom for the financial disaster and the social disgrace. He said he never would have married into a family of unstable women if he'd known what he was getting into. I feel a brief pang of something. Not sympathy exactly, but recognition of the particular pain that comes from being abandoned by someone you trusted. What exactly does Linda want from me? Emma opens the manila envelope and pulls out a handwritten letter. She wrote you this. She asked me to give it to you, but said she'd understand if you threw it away without reading it. The letter is written on cheap stationery in Linda's familiar handwriting, but the tone is completely different from anything she's ever said to me. Mother, I know I have no right to contact you after what I did. I know that trying to have you committed was unforgivable. I know that lying about your mental health was cruel. I know that forging your signature was criminal. I've spent this year losing everything: my marriage, my career, my home, my reputation. And in losing everything, I finally understood what I actually lost the day I chose social status over family love. I lost you, the woman who sacrificed everything so I could become someone I'm not proud of being. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't expect reconciliation. I don't even expect a response to this letter. But I needed you to know that I understand now what you tried to teach me for so many years: that a person's worth isn't measured by their bank account or their address. I see it now in the articles about your foundation, in the children whose lives you're changing, in the respect you've earned from people who actually matter. You've built something beautiful from the ashes of our relationship, and I'm genuinely proud to be your daughter, even though I know I've forfeited the right to claim that connection. I hope someday I can become someone worthy of the mother who raised me. Linda. I fold the letter carefully and look at Emma, who's been watching my face intently. What do you think I should do? Emma considers this thoughtfully. Grandma Caroline, for the past year, I've watched you build a life based on love, respect, and genuine connection. You've shown me what it means to have boundaries while still having an open heart. She pauses, choosing her words carefully. Mom hurt you in ways that can't be undone. But people can change. And this letter, it's the first time I've ever heard her take responsibility for anything without making excuses. I walk to my piano and sit on the bench where I've spent so many hours teaching children that mistakes don't define you. How you respond to them does. You know what I've learned this year, Emma? I've learned that forgiveness isn't about letting people back into your life unconditionally. It's about releasing the anger that weighs you down. I can forgive Linda for what she did without pretending it didn't happen. So, what does that look like? I think about the 12 children who come here every week, about the foundation that bears your grandfather's name, about the life I've built from the pieces of the one Linda tried to destroy. It looks like this. I'll meet with her. Once, I'll listen to what she has to say. But the relationship we have going forward, if we have one at all, will be entirely different from the one where I sacrificed my dignity for her approval. Emma smiles and raises her champagne glass. To new beginnings and earned respect. To understanding that it's never too late to choose love over fear. 2 weeks later, I'm sitting across from Linda in a small cafe in Brooklyn Heights, the same neighborhood where I used to take her for ice cream when she was little. She looks older, tired, but there's something different in her eyes. A humility I've never seen before. Thank you for agreeing to see me, she says quietly, her hands wrapped around a cup of coffee she's barely touched. I'm here because Emma asked me to be, and because I believe people deserve a chance to be heard. Linda nods, looking down at the table. I've been in therapy for 6 months, learning about narcissistic behavior, about how childhood trauma can make you desperate for external validation, about how I turned you into the enemy because you represented everything I was running from. And what were you running from? Being poor, being ordinary, being the kind of person I thought people looked down on. She meets my eyes for the first time. Being you. The words hang in the air between us. Painful, but honest. I spent my entire adult life trying to prove I was better than my raising. What I never understood was that my raising, your raising, was the best thing about me. I listen, but I don't offer immediate comfort. This conversation has been 40 years in the making. I can't undo what I did, Linda continues. I can't give you back the dignity I stripped away, or erase the humiliation I put you through. I can't return the years I made you feel worthless when you were worth everything. No, you can't. But I can tell you that watching you build that foundation, seeing the respect you've earned, reading about the lives you're changing, it's made me realize that the woman I was so embarrassed of is actually the woman I wish I could be. I sip my tea, choosing my words carefully. Linda, I appreciate this conversation. I appreciate your honesty. But you need to understand something. I don't need your approval anymore. I don't need your acknowledgement of my worth. I've built a life filled with people who see my value without requiring proof. Her eyes fill with tears. I know. And that's what makes this so much harder. I'm not asking for forgiveness because I think I deserve it. I'm asking because I need to know if there's any possibility that someday I might earn the right to be proud of calling myself your daughter again. I look at this woman across from me, my daughter, but also a stranger, who spent decades making choices that prioritized image over integrity. Linda, here's what I've learned at 81 years old. Family isn't about blood, it's about behavior. It's about showing up consistently with love and respect. It's about choosing connection over status every single time. I pause, watching her absorb these words. If you want to rebuild a relationship with me, it won't be based on guilt or obligation or childhood memories. It will be based on who you choose to be going forward every day, in small moments and big decisions. What would that look like? It would look like you volunteering at the foundation, not because it's your path back to me, but because you genuinely want to serve children who remind you of who we used to be. It would look like you making choices based on what's right, not what looks good. It would look like you becoming someone I could genuinely respect, regardless of our history. Linda wipes her eyes with a paper napkin. And if I do those things, there might be room for me in your life again. There might be room for a relationship with the person you become. But it would be a new relationship, Linda, built on who we are now, not who we used to be. As I stand to leave, Linda says one more thing. Mom, I mean, Caroline, thank you for not giving up on the possibility that people can change. I didn't do it for you, I tell her honestly. I did it for me, because holding on to anger was weighing me down, and I had children to teach and a life to live. Walking home through the Brooklyn streets I've called home for nearly 4 decades, I think about the people watching this story who might be facing their own family betrayals, their own moments of being dismissed or devalued by people who should cherish them. Here's what I want you to know. Your worth doesn't depend on other people's recognition. Your value doesn't decrease because someone fails to see it. And it's never too late to choose dignity over desperation, respect over approval, authentic love over performative loyalty. Real family doesn't hide you away. Real family builds a bigger table. And I finally got my seat back. Love without respect isn't love. And I've finally chosen respect.